Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you may be, and welcome to a very special interview of the Final Cut podcast. And today, I have a very, very, very special guest. He is a radio DJ, he's a singer, he's been in the music business longer than I have been alive. So that's saying something. So, ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Tony Prince.
Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you may be. It's your royal ruler. How are you, Dino?
Not bad. How are you?
I'm top of the world. The weather's gorgeous, even though we're all locked in. It's lovely. I'm in the garden talking to you.
Have you got a beer in hand, or is it too early?
No, it's too early. I've got a radio show between 3 and 5 in the afternoons. So I never had a drink before I go on air, ever in my life. But I certainly make up for it after a show.
Sir, I respect you for that. Definitely older and definitely wiser than a lot of people.
Yeah, you can't handle a radio show if you've had a couple of jars, you know. You've got to keep your head.
Now, you've had a very long and successful career. What highlights do you have?
Too many to mention, really. How long have you got?
As long as you want. But I'll make it easier. Which highlights have meant more to you than others?
Oh, I think without a question, meeting Elvis Presley a couple of times, interviewing him in Vegas. That's got to be at the top of my list. I'm still, after many years, it started on Radio Caroline when I was a pirate DJ. I was made honorary president of the Elvis Presley fan club of Great Britain. I've worn that as a badge of honor all my life, you know, and meeting Elvis a couple of times was pretty good. Working with Paul McCartney, I worked for him for about 10 years. Jeez. He had a thing every year called the Buddy Holly Week, and he, for some reason, chose me to MC it for him. That led to a few occasions. You know, he'd put on an event that promoted Buddy Holly music, which he publishes. And often we'd have a band there. Could be members of Wings, could be Mike Berry and his band, but we'd get up and sing. And I've got 2 films of me singing with Paul McCartney, which I kind of cherish that as well. You know, that's quite something to say you've sung with the Beatles.
Wow. I can hear many people who here are already in sheer envy. I mean, who wouldn't be?
You shouldn't be envy.
You sang with Paul McCartney. That's probably...
I was very fortunate, Dino. You know, I mean, I was a singer in a band and in the top-ranked ballroom in Oldham, and the manager paid me a couple of quid a week extra to play the records when the band had a break. So that's when I became a DJ. I'd be about 16 years old then, but... I'd be a DJ when the band were at the bar having their drinks. And then the manager started asking me which bands to book for live sessions, and it was Tuesday nights. So I recommended bands. And then one night I saw the Beatles on TV, on Granada TV. I think the show was called People and Places. And they came on and sang Love Me Do. And so I went to the manager of the top rank in Oldham. I said, you've got to book this band, they're fantastic. So he did. He paid about 35 quid for them. And when they arrived in Oldham, they'd actually done a gig in Sheffield before they came to us for Peter Stringfellow, who had a club in Sheffield back then. And so they came over to Oldham, and the whole area, it was called the Star Inn, was just full of screaming girls, guys as well. It was the start of Beatlemania, and in the dressing room that night before I introduced them, Paul read out a telegram from Maurice Kinn, the editor of the New Musical Express, the NME paper that we used to all look forward to reading every week. And he said, Dear Beatles, congratulations, you are number 1 on the NME chart with Please Please Me. So it was their first number 1, and I was on stage introducing them the night Please Please Me went to number 1. So that is another great cherished memory. And of course, the Oldham Chronicle took some great photos, which are on my wall now. Yeah, so there you go. There's 3 for you. That's enough. Yep.
So, no, obviously, I've never met Paul McCartney. He seems like a very nice guy. So you've obviously met him, so you know. Is he as nice guy as
you don't get any nicer than Paul. He is just a charmer. You know, he's wonderful. And Linda, who I worked with a lot with him as well, Linda McCartney, was absolutely fantastic. She taught me into becoming a vegetarian. And she actually taught the Hard Rock Cafe on Piccadilly in Manchester to introduce a veggie burger. They'd never had one in a Hard Rock Cafe before Linda got stuck into them. So they agreed to start a veggie burger, and to launch the menu, she agreed to put a party on in the Hard Rock on Piccadilly, and I was there. And it was just full of, well, the Beatles were there, you know, and Priscilla Presley came in with the actor Rutger Hauer. I was there with Christine, my wife, Kid Jensen and his wife Gudrun, watching all these celebrities. Mary Hopkins, Ringo Starr, Jim Capaldi, Chrissy Hind.
Wow.
It was just wall-to-wall celebrities in that little venue. They made a dance floor for people to have a dance. And Priscilla Presley, who I hadn't met at that point, was having a dance with this actor, Rutger Hauer, and I tapped him on the shoulder and said, excuse me, Rutger, this is a British tradition. This is an excuse me. We are allowed to dance with your partner. Oh, yeah, sure, buddy. He walked off the floor and left me with Priscilla. So I said to her, hey, Priscilla, we've got something in common. She said, oh, yeah, what's that? I said, we're both in love with the same guy. So she laughed at that. We had a dance. And, I interviewed her a couple of times later in life, but that was my first meeting with the lovely Priscilla.
Wow. I really don't know what to say.
You're speechless. I've never known a DJ to be speechless. Come on, Dino, keep up with the pace here.
Oh, I just don't know what to say. You've met so many great people who I literally have or either wanted to meet, and it's just like all the stories you've coming out with, I'm just so engrossed.
I'll give you another one, right? You know I own DMC, which was the publisher of Mixmag magazine before I sold it.
I am aware.
I still own DMC and was still putting on the World DJ Championships every year. Although struggling this year because of the not being allowed to have audiences. Yeah. But there was one year at the Royal Albert Hall. We booked the Royal Albert Hall 3 times and invited all the DJs of the world to come and fill the place. And we used to get big-name celebrities coming on stage. Run DMC, Public Enemy, Janet Jackson, Alexander O'Neill, Chaka Khan. They all came and did a tune for us. But one year, I think it was the last year we were going to be there, I decided to surprise the audience, and I knew how thrilled they would be. I was quite friendly with the Scotti brothers in Los Angeles, who had a record label, and this guy was on their label.
Oh.
And I called them up. I said, what's it going to cost me to get him to come over and make a surprise visit on stage? So they told me, I said, look, I haven't got money, to pay silly fees, but I'll pay him and his manager's airfare and put them in a hotel. So they agreed to that. And so on this occasion at the Royal Albert Hall, I was emceeing the event, and I'd introduced quite a few big names. And then I went out front and said, okay, everybody, you've had a great night tonight, but I'll tell you something. I'm going to introduce you to someone now that you lot out there here in the Royal Albert Hall will tell your children about. Okay, here we go. Will you please welcome James Brown?
Wow, you got James Brown?
And he walks on stage with his suit, and he was just awestruck. I've never seen an artist who was genuinely thrilled and couldn't speak. He just stood there as the place erupted in applause, because, of course, every DJ loved James Brown. He was one of our heroes. And then he said a few words to them, and I gave him a trophy, a lifetime award from DMC. So that was another big kick for me, A lot of companies would have advertised James Brown was coming, but we knew we'd fill out the Royal Albert Hall. I didn't need to promote it. So we did. It was a gift, really, to our DJs. Yeah. And they all know that. It was a wonderful moment.
Wow, James Brown.
What else can I tell you?
Oof, I don't know.
After Radio Caroline, I went to live in Luxembourg, spent 16 years with Radio Luxembourg, and I was part of the first live team when the pirates were made illegal. I was on Radio Caroline for a couple of years, but when the government made it illegal for us to work on the pirate ships, it was a time for the BBC to rethink their programming, and they launched Radio 1. And over in Luxembourg, they decided to have a live DJ team. There'd all be pre-recorded shows before that.
Yeah.
So I went over to Luxembourg, and there was myself, Paul Burnett, Noel Edmonds, and Kid Jensen, and we were the first live team broadcasting from the Grand Duchy of Luxembourg. It meant we had to live in the middle of Europe, which none of us really liked. But we were on a most magnificent radio station. Because your listeners probably don't realise that before the Pirates, it was a barren land for music. You know, the BBC were playing very little pop music. There was no local radio. There was no internet. And at night, 7:30, you'd tune into this AM radio station broadcasting all the way from Luxembourg. And you'd listen to all the hits. And you'd have static, you know, the screaming noises coming through the music. But we didn't mind. We put up with it because we had no choice. You know, we wanted to hear music even if it had static on it. So, yeah, that's another great memory, being a part of that very first team at Luxembourg.
I'm so glad you pointed Luxembourg out. Obviously, you said you didn't like it, but what is Luxembourg like as a country? It's just that when everyone goes on holiday, no one's ever like, oh, yeah, I've been to...
The centre is built on kind of like a valley, and there's castles, you know, and there's caves on the side of the cliff faces, and they go all over the country. In fact, our record library led down into the cellar in the Villa Louvini, which is where the radio station was. And you could go down there and go down a catacomb of tunnels. We never went too far because you'd get lost, you know, but it's that kind of country, you know. It's got a Grand Duke, it's got palaces, it's got castles, and it's on the river Moselle. A lot of nice restaurants down there on the bank of the Moselle River, which if you look over the river, it's Germany on the other side. Luxembourg's nestled between Germany, Belgium, and France. Where they three meet, that's where Luxembourg is.
It sounds quite a nice country.
Oh, it's very pleasant, and it's become very cosmopolitan. I went out there recently for Paul and Nicole Burnett's golden wedding anniversary. We went out to celebrate that, and we had a chance to see it as it is today, because I left there about 20 years ago. And, yeah, it's really cosmopolitan, because you've got all the EEC there, all the money people, and there's a real lot of money in that town now. And so you've got the clubs now, which we didn't have when we lived there. And you've got the big-name shops and things like that. It's just become very cosmopolitan. But it's still very pleasant. They've got a square in the middle of town called the Place Dame with a big bandstand. That's still there. And at the weekends, mainly, they put on brass bands and choirs as you sip your wine and enjoy life in the sunshine. It's really nice.
Right, so obviously you started United DJs. What made you start it out?
Well, I'll tell you what I was doing. I had a TV channel on Sky called Wedding TV, which was all about getting married and making films for girls who were in love. And it lasted about 5 years. But during that process, I became program director, and I learned how to make films, how to edit films, and so on. So when Wedding TV ended, I went back to DMC, and I started creating a series called The History of DJ. I thought it's about time somebody told the world where the DJ came from, where the idea of Wolfman Jack in America came from, all the personality DJs, what radio meant during the war. So I started right at the beginning of, the invention of the radio, and then its development until we get to the 60s and the pirate stations. And I did a big episode or two on Radio Luxembourg. And the very last episode I did, there were 16 episodes, and they were all at least 30 minutes long. And the last one, I invited a lot of my DJ colleagues from over the years to come and be interviewed by me to camera. And they were all really upset with the way radio had kind of divorced itself from personality DJs. They're all working with very tight playlists, same records over and over again. DJs are being trained to be radio DJs, and the training means don't talk more than 30 seconds. Play a jingle here, always play a jingle there. We're all disenfranchised by their industry that had made them all into great radio celebrities, and then been divorced. Like the BBC, they'd create all these big-name DJs, and then they'd just drop them over the edge and leave them to it. I could never understand why the BBC, who created Six Music, great channel, why they didn't, when you've got Radio 1 and then Radio 2 for the older people. But what about radio for the older people? The people who would like to hear Mike Reed, Noel Edmonds, Kid Jensen, all these great names from the past who were a part of their life. I couldn't understand why the BBC didn't do that. So I decided to do it myself. And on April the 2nd, 2018, we launched United DJ Radio, which you can get on uniteddj.com. And currently on the breakfast show. Bob Lawrence follows him. Himself a pirate DJ on Caroline many years ago. Our young protege, he's only 40, is Stuart Busby, and he does through lunchtime. I do 3 till 5 in the afternoon. And then we've got DJs from, I think it's 13 countries. They've all got home studios. They all come in either pre-recorded or live. We've got Roscoe from LA. We've got Max McGill from Ohio. We've got Freddie Cannon from Nashville with a country show. And a real great variety. We've got really great variety of DJs, but they've all got one thing in common. They're like they used to be. They choose their own music. They're enjoying it. You can hear it. It's back to personality, and that's why I launched United DJ. Whether we will survive financially, I don't know. We obviously need to start revealing our audience. It's very difficult to do that when you're streaming around the world. But one day we'll have figures that will impress the advertisers, and then we'll be secure. Or it won't happen, and we'll have to close down. But at least we've had a go, and we've got an incredible following now already. They just love it.
Where there's a following, there's always a demand. If there's demand, there will be no cancellation.
Yes, I guess so, But at the moment, it's really great fun. Everybody's enjoying it, including the listeners. It is costing me money right now, but we'll see how long I can sustain it.
Well, hopefully you can sustain it for a very long time. Hopefully.
Well, thank you, Dino. I appreciate that, and I appreciate this discussion. Thank you very much. So, you stroke my ego.
Oh, so I've got to do it to somebody at least once a week. So, yes, does everyone at United DJs have their own nickname? Because, as you pointed out, you are the royal ruler, so my liege. So, are you the only one with a nickname, or does everyone get a nickname?
We've called Stuart Busby the Nipper. Because he's the youngest on the channel. He's 40 and he's the youngest. We did that with Kid Jensen in Luxembourg. He was about 17 years age when he came out to Luxembourg. And Paul Burnett said, we'll call you Kid. So he'd been Kid Jensen all his life, But on the pirate ships, we all had nicknames. On Caroline North ship, which I was on most of the time, we had Daffy Don Allen, Jerry Super Layton, Mick Loves It, and the Royal Ruler. Yeah, we all had nicknames. It's just what you did,
Oh,
Mike Reed still Mike Reed, he doesn't need to be anyone else,
The name's all you need. By the way, I do have a question. You did mention Noel Edmonds. Are you his Did he get any conversation with you as to where Mr. Blobby came from?
No.
I thought you might have inspired him.
No, I had nothing to do with Noel at that time. It was just a TV idea, wasn't it?
Yeah. I didn't know.
He's in New Zealand now, by the way.
I missed the good old 90s when Noel used to be on my TV every Saturday and we used to have a laugh. He used to get flirted with Vicky Michelle. Those were the good old days.
I got to tell you, he did his first gotcha in Luxembourg. When he first came out, it was his first radio job. He didn't come from any other radio station. We just spotted he had some talent. But we all lived together, and Kid Jensen was on the Late Show. That's 1 o'clock till 3 in the morning. And he shared a flat with Noel. So we were all in Kid and Noel's apartment listening to Kid, and my wife was there. Now, Noel had a girlfriend who worked in a club with my wife. They both wore the same uniform, and Christine had that uniform because she'd just come straight from the club. And then we get the idea. I think it was Noel's idea. He said, let's set her up. Let's set Kid Jensen up. Let's make this house here look like I'd killed her. We've fallen out, right? So Christine had to be the girl who was going to be murdered, right?
Yeah.
She didn't enjoy it one bit. She put her head under the bed. Her legs were hanging out with the uniform, the mini skirt and whatever. We put tomato ketchup on her legs.
Oh God!
Got a fork and ran it through the ketchup so it looked like scratches. Mm. We turned the paintings on the wall to the side, turned over a settee, and then Noel was going to put his head in the oven. It's a gas oven, right? He's put a cushion in the oven. We're all watching through the window because we'll see Kid off about half a mile down the road. And when he's coming, we all get into position. Yeah. Paul Burnett and I hide in the shower, trying to stop laughing. Noel's now ran to the oven. And then what does he do? Before he gets in the oven, he knocks the chip pan over with all the oil in it. Ooh. And it goes all over the kitchen floor. And he falls and skids. Oh, nothing to do now. He said, let's get on with it. He turned the gas stove on so Kid could smell the gas and put his head in the oven.
Oh, God.
Kid comes running up the stairs. We hear the door unlock. Now, it's only a 2-bedroom apartment.
Oh, no.
Yeah, the bed's on the left. As he opens it, you can see the legs and the tomato ketchup. Oh, God. He looks straight ahead to the right. That is, he sees Noel's body in the oven. And he sees the oil on the floor and the chaos that we've set up. And Burnett and I are just bursting to laugh. No, says Kid, no. And that was it. He flew down the stairs. He didn't come in to save his life, pull him out of the oven. He ran downstairs. Yeah. So me and Burnett ran after him. He's running down the street now. Help! Help! It's 3 a.m. in Luxembourg. Oh, God. And the lights start going on, you know. He suddenly realizes he's been set up.
Oh.
And that was Noel's first gotcha.
Oh, dear. You know what? I forgot what I was going to ask now because I've just been laughing so much. Oh, that was quality.
No, we had a lot of fun.
Oh, yeah, that's what I wanted to ask you. You said that was Noel's first gotcha. Were you actually with Noel when he gotcha DLT? Davey Travis, because that for me is the most iconic gotcha, especially with what Davey Travis said afterwards.
No, I was in Luxembourg. I lived in Luxembourg for 9 years while they were all on Radio 1. Oh. I didn't. Apart from when we came over, we'd socialise, but we didn't interplay together after we lived in Luxembourg. But yeah. But you know that gotcha thing. I mean, Ant and Dec are doing it now, aren't they?
They are.
Yeah, but Noel did it first of all, I guess.
I always thought that Noel Edmonds was always the king of doing it. Because no matter who he had, they never suspected a thing.
Well, I'll tell you what, he's one of the few DJs when he first started on Luxembourg who made me listen. Because he was such an originator. He was so good at it to say he hadn't had any experience. And I was a big fan, and I wasn't surprised when he actually went to Radio 1. As did most of my colleagues, by the way. You know, they all drifted back to London and BBC, Paul Burnett, Noel Edmonds, Steve Wright, who I employed. They all went to the Beeb. Kid Jensen. Yeah, it was a real pain for the Radio Luxembourg management that would build a DJ up and then the BBC would nick him.
Yeah.
So there you go. I stayed with them for 16 years. The last 7 we came back to England. I was program director. That gave me a good management experience. Have you had enough yet? Does this podcast ever run out?
I'm all right. It's not as if I've got anything to do today anyway, so I can carry on.
Anyway, listen, Dino, if you could just tell your fans if they've enjoyed some of my anecdotes, there's a lot more of them. In my book, The Royal Ruler and the Railway DJ. They can get that from Amazon. There's 2 stories in it. There's my story and all the fun we had on pirate radio in Luxembourg, etc. And then there's my DJ colleague Jan Sestak, who I met in Czechoslovakia when they were still controlled by the Russians under communist rule. And his story kind of like counterparts my fun with his horrors. It makes a really interesting read. So if they want it, I'd love them to go and read it. Not because I want to make a profit, because it was self-published. You know, you can't make money from self-publishing. But I just want the kids today to know how dangerous communism is, and Jan reveals that very clearly.
I might even buy that, considering all the stories you just engrossed me with.
Well, they're all in there, for sure.
Oh yes, apparently on Sunday you will be joined by Sir Winston Churchill, apparently.
Yeah, you know what? On radio, you've got to try and be original. So every radio station is doing the stay safe warnings. We decided to bring the guy who helped us to win the Second World War, because now we're in the Third World War against the coronavirus. So we brought Winston Churchill in. We've revived him. He's in good form. We've got cigars for him, 2 o'clock on Sunday, British time. He's got his cigars and he's got his cognac. And he's going to deliver a pop music show to benefit the Stay Safe campaign that we've been running for a few weeks now. So I hope people will listen. 2 o'clock, UnitedDJ.com. You can get it anywhere in the world.
All right, here's a bit of a challenge for you. You've lived a lot of years in the music business, so name me 5 of your personal favourite songs that you'd recommend to anyone listening.
No, that's not fair.
All right,
that's not fair. I need a playlist in front of me. I just like all kinds of music, but you're going to have an Elvis song, and the best ballad ever was him singing "Don't." I don't know, anything from the King Creole album by Elvis is one that really turns me on. More modern day, Billie Eilish, I love her James Bond theme, that's fantastic, but everybody's heard that now. We were playing that before anybody, really. Jack Savaretti, if you haven't heard him yet, get a listen. He's like the new Joe Cocker. He's fantastic. And I love the new Bob Dylan single. It's something like 13 minutes long. Murder Most Foul, I think it's called. I played it twice. You can't play it too many times because it's too long. If somebody doesn't like Dylan, they're going to turn you off, but I have played it twice. There you go. And Paul Simon, Graceland, always takes me down Elvis Presley Boulevard. That one, I love it. That do you?
Yeah, every single question I actually had ready for you, you've just answered with at least every single story you've just told me. So yeah.
I'm sorry.
No, you're right. It's good. Sometimes it's nice when the person I'm interviewing gets to lead it.
Well, you know what? We DJs, we know how to talk, don't we?
There you go. So, and besides, who am I to get in the way of radio royalty?
Anyway, Dino, thanks for having me on your podcast.
Thank you very much.
It's been a great pleasure talking to you.
It's been an honour as well, sir.
My love to all your fans, and catch you sometime.
Right, take care of yourself, sir.
Bye-bye, Dino.
Bye-bye. And on that, ladies and gentlemen, that has been the legend, the royal ruler, Tony Prince.